This is Garis book readings of my two published paper books written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. This is Chapter 1, Part 7 of my book entitled Multis and Monos. What the multicultured can teach the monocultured towards the creation of a global state. Continuing straight on from Part 6, Chapter 1. Thus, the EU is an example of a continental-sized post-national political unit, a PNPU. Admittedly, there are continental-sized single countries, for example Russia, the US, China, etc., but these are not pooling their sovereignty the way the EU is. The EU is a political first, a pioneer in the history of the development of political units, and represents perhaps the best hope to serve as a stepping stone towards the creation of a global state, Globa, G-L-O-B-A, although there are other routes to globification besides the EU expansion route, see Chapter 8. Historically speaking, over thousands of years, as the technologies of the time have allowed it, the sizes of political units have grown from caveman families to migratory bands, to villages, to tribes, to towns, to cities, to dukedoms, to countries, to unions. At any of these stages, various technological, social, economic, political forces were at work to cause the historical transition to the next phase, to the next scale. This book claims that humanity is about to move up again, this time towards the creation of the global state, with all its huge advantages, for example, no more wars, having money spent on people, not on arms, creating a greater fairness in incomes, having international disputes settled in a world court rather than on the battlefield, creating a global culture and a global language so that people understand each other far better. This book discusses all these topics in considerable detail. A century from the time of writing, it's likely that our great-grandchildren will be living in a global state and benefiting from its superiorities. They will look back at the international rivalries of our current age with its nuclear warheads and shudder. They will shake their heads and mutter, "Thank God those days are over." Our great-grandchildren will live in a world free of wars, in a world much freer and much richer than ours today, where we still waste huge amounts of money on arms and researching how to kill each other more efficiently. Everyone will be rich, even those countries that are the poorest in the international rankings at the time of writing. G. Building Globa, the political goal of the century. As detailed in Chapter 5, there are many factors that are combining to form a global state. At the time of writing, these factors are essentially spontaneous, blind, and uncoordinated. What this book hopes to change regarding the rise of these global state-forming processes is their blindness. This book hopes to raise people's consciousness concerning the creation of a global state. That is, to make people aware that a global state is coming, and that instead of sitting back and watching it emerge at its own pace, that it would be preferable to actively foster and accelerate its growth by studying its nature, and particularly by creating an ideology in favor of global state creation, and then pushing that ideology. This book, then, is essentially ideological. It aims to make its readers conscious that the creation of a global state would be a wonderful thing, benefiting humanity enormously, and a goal worthy of the citizens of the planet to pursue, and to pursue with considerable energy, given the enormity of the payoff. In fact, one can make a statement even stronger than the one above, namely that, quote, "The creation of a global state should be the principal political goal of the century." End quote. This book labels people who believe such a statement as globists, with its corresponding ideology, globism. This is a globist book. It makes the point that at the time of writing, humanity lives in relatively isolated nation-states which distrust each other and therefore are constantly preparing for the next war, wasting a huge amount of money in the process and living in a constant state of fear. It also attempts by using constant reinforcement and reiteration to focus attention on the idea that people suffer from the limitations of the single cultures that program them. In the world of the time of writing, most people are monos, that is, monocultured, and hence suffer from the limitations of the one culture that conditions them. This book claims that people would be happier and freer if they were multis, that is, multicultured, and aware of the superiorities of several or many other cultures. They could then absorb those superiorities into their own personalities and benefit accordingly. This idea is one of the recurring themes of this book and pops up many times. And as described in an earlier section of this chapter, one can extend the above argument from mono to multi by extrapolating it to its logical limit, that is, from multi to global or globan, that is, the terms given to a global citizen of globa, a citizen of a global state. The globists will need to develop their ideology and then spread it across the planet in a manner historically similar to the way the socialists or democrats spread their ideologies in earlier centuries. There's a major reward waiting for the globists and for humanity in general, that is, the creation of a global state with all its many positive consequences, the most important being, of course, the riddance of war in the world, plus many other substantial benefits. Thus the globists should write books, write pamphlets, organise into small local groups and later form political parties, all aimed at pushing the creation of a world state. The globists should start haranguing the nationalists, ridiculing them as being petty-minded and as having narrow conceptions, narrow horizons. The globists should preach to the world's citizens concerning the many benefits that would follow the creation of a world state, so that more and more people become favourable to its creation. The globists should also help in fostering those factors that contribute towards the creation of a world state, particularly in the creation of a much faster internet and the creation of a global media that a billion-fold faster internet, relative to the speeds at the time of writing, will allow. As mentioned very briefly earlier in this chapter, it's my opinion that probably the most powerful factor in the next few decades that will contribute towards the creation of a global state will be the creation of a global media called Glow Media. That will bring the entire world's media to the entire world, that is, everyone gets everything. In practical terms, this would mean that each of the Earth's citizens could have access to the TV, radio, magazines, newspapers, books, etc. of the entire world. Which to some extent we already, ad-libbing now, we already have to, except for the language barrier, we still don't really have a world language, but thanks to the internet and BRAD, bit rate annual doubling, the world pretty well has access to most of the world. The media would then be global, not national. It would no longer be possible for national governments to brainwash their monocultured citizens into the views held by national leaders. People would be exposed to the views of other nations and hence be a lot more cosmopolitan, more multi in their views. Of course, the above will only be practical if there's a world language, but that will come. A global media will stimulate the growth of a global language as more and more programs are broadcast in that language, hoping to capture a larger audience. A world language snowball effect will develop. The higher the percentage of people speaking the world language, the higher will be the proportion of the media programs of the world that are created in that language. Once a world language is well established, that is, when most people on the planet speak and read two languages, that is, their own local language and the world language, then good new ideas can spread quickly across the planet. A world language will then help significantly in the creation of a culturally homogenized global culture, which in turn will make the formation of a global state much easier. This chain of logic, a billion times faster internet, leading to a global media, leading to the creation of a global language, leading to the creation of a globally homogenized culture, leading to the creation of a global state, is another of the dominant themes of this book and will pop up many times for reinforcement purposes. The globists can use this chain of logic in their ideology and spread it across the planet to help people become aware of the rise of a global state. The process of globification will probably occur spontaneously anyway, but if the globists make it explicit and conscious and then push it on the current world media to the extent that it exists, then the whole globification process will probably proceed a lot faster. Hopefully, the globus will be able to inspire millions, if not billions of people to become globist in their outlook. Globism may very well become the dominant political ideology of the century and should be marketed in those terms. This is a literal statement and is important enough to warrant such a claim. New section. This introductory chapter has attempted to give an overview of the main themes of this book. The next chapter begins the detailed work, namely spelling out how monos suffer by being monos. It presents a list of advantages and disadvantages of the lifestyles of people living in various world-leading countries. This list is based on my experiences of having lived in 7 countries, which include most of these world-leading nations. As the title of this book suggests, I am convinced that being a mono is to suffer, that is, to be afflicted by the limitations of the monoculture that programs monos to think in a mono way. By presenting both the advantages and disadvantages, or alternatively the superiorities and inferiorities of each member of this sample of cultures, I hope to make people aware that they can learn from the superiorities of other cultures. Having a world media and a world language will make this learning process much easier, hence the importance of these globifying factors. Monos will be able to become multis more readily and in turn become globans. Well, that's the end of chapter 1. Ciao.